Hey, morning everyone. I think we're ready to get started. So welcome to today's change control webinar, which will be covering CR52. Hannah will be posting a Slido in the chat, and we request that any questions to be posted in the Slido, please, as this is a broadcast, so we can have the Q&A recorded, so that would be great. So without further ado, over to yourself, Andy.
Thank you very much. Morning, everybody. My name's Andy McFall, and I'm part of the Ofgem MHHS team. And the purpose of this webinar is to draw your attention to a CR that we're proposing in relation to the M7 deliverable, both the timing, the deadline for the deliverable, but also the description of it. So what we have at the moment, the driver for this is that actually on current planning, M7 would be highly unlikely not to be met. Now, what is M7? At the moment, it's described as SCR powers enabled, which might strike people as slightly vague. So what we're going to try and do is tighten that up. But it relates to the decisions that Ofgem is going to make on the set of baseline code mod proposals that the CCAG is planning to agree on at its August meeting, so towards the end of next month. On current planning, after the CCAG baselines those code mod proposals, Ofgem would then use its powers to direct the code bodies to conduct a consultation on those modifications with a view to receiving the final report, modification report documentation from the relevant code bodies on the 11th of November. Now, unfortunately, the plan heroically assumes that Ofgem will be able thereafter to make its decisions on those in relation as a result of the FMRs on the very same day, the 11th of November. And that's not going to happen. We need a considerable amount longer time than that to do our due diligence on the FMRs, take up any conversations we want to have with stakeholders, draft our decisions and get senior level approvals before we can issue those decisions. So we are proposing a delay of M7 delivery of 4 weeks so that Ofgem would be able to take up to the 11th of December 2024 to make our decisions on these code modifications. Now, that's not to say we will necessarily need all the 4 weeks, but we think it is prudent to plan for a 4-week period to turn around the FMRs and convert those into decisions. So that is what we have proposed in this CR. The other thing that we want to do is change the description so that it is much more clear about what it is that we will actually be delivering with the M7 milestone. And as I say, that is to make plain that those decisions, they will be Ofgem decisions on the baseline set of code modifications that programme through CCAG will have baselined in August. So just to provide that clarity and certainty for industry as to what exactly M7 is going to be delivering, as well as giving Ofgem a more realistic time frame for delivering them, a month instead of less than 1 working day. We have had discussions with the programme, as you'd expect, and also with the code bodies, who would, of course, be doing work to translate any Ofgem approval decision into actual delivery of the code changes at the M8 delivery point. And we have been assured by the code bodies that they are happy to work at risk, as it were, carry on with the work that they need to do in order to implement these any approval decision, with the result that we believe that there is little practical risk to M8 as a result of giving Ofgem an extra month to make its M7 decisions. That's the guts of it. One little point of detail is that in the detail of the plan, it says that Ofgem were intending to publish an open letter to industry after the CCAG in August to confirm our intention to use our SCR powers to raise modifications. Now, the reason why we put this in the plan originally is because it follows how we behaved in 2021 when we were using our SCR powers to direct the code bodies to modify the code, to take through code modification proposals to establish the MHHS governance arrangements. But of course, back then we didn't have Electron wasn't at that point geared up with its MHHS program role and function, and now they are, of course. And so the expectation is, in fact, that in the headline report post CCAG, that the program would be, if all goes to plan in August, provided that the code mod proposals have been baselined at that CCAG, the program in its headline report will set out next steps, including the expectation that Ofgem will use its SCR powers to raise modifications in early September. That being the case, we don't need to publish an open letter because it would just be duplication covering the same ground. So that's just a point of detail. So that's it, really. I hope colleagues will agree that that's a reasonably straightforward and hopefully sensible proposal. I believe it's a realistic one. And with the code bodies agreeing to work at risk, we don't see any particularly serious impacts, frankly. But of course, the whole point of this is to get your questions, and of course, then the next stage, obviously, is to put it out to IA, where people can tell us if there are impacts that we haven't considered. But that's probably, folks, all I intend to say in the first instance. But happy to take questions.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, John, so we can use the Slido for questions and answers. So Hannah has sent the link into the chat. Hannah, if you don't mind just resharing, just in case someone was a bit late and didn't see it. So John, sorry, I see you have your hand up, but we are trying to use the Slido, so please, if you could use that. Thank you.
Thank you, Roisin, and thank you, Andy. So following the industry webinar, the change request will be issued to impact assessment, and the results of the impact assessment will be reviewed by the change board, who will provide a recommendation to the SRO to approve or to reject the change request at Programme Steering Group. So as Roisin mentioned, the Q&A is open. So are there any questions, Hannah, in the Q&A that we want to start with?
John Lawson got a hand up? Not sure.
Yeah, so we don't. So this is because it's a webinar. We try not to engage in discussions as much as capturing everything in Q&A in the Slido or in the chat, just to follow the right process.
Well, as I was saying, I hope it's reasonably straightforward. Trying to make a milestone more realistic in terms of the timescale and clearer in its description of what we're actually delivering.
So we haven't got any questions coming through yet, but just a reminder to please use the Slido, and that will be open for the whole day. So if you can think of something, feel free to put that in there as well.
So John's comment is in the chat there, Andy. So the previous open letters included the dates. How are these going to be notified?
I'm not quite sure John, what you mean by notified. I mean, we're just gonna. I mean, I think the proposal is just to strip out that line. It's an activity that Ofgem isn't going to do anymore. The expectation, frankly, is that the messages Ofgem would have conveyed in that open letter, the guts of them will be conveyed in the headline report post CCAG. Oh, I see. I see. Okay, right. That's a good question. I'll have to take that offline, John. Timing of that. Yeah, it's a good question.
So we will work with Andy until close of business today to.
It may be something that I can start to talk to in the auspices of the CCAG. Let me just think about that, John.
Yeah, so Andy will work with you, and then we'll send out the questions and answers later today or tomorrow morning. So
it's a good question.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So
John.
anything else come in, Hannah?
Nothing coming in so far.
No worries. So we do leave the Q&A open all day. So if people want to take some time to submit some more questions, and we'll work with Andy to get the answers out.
Great. Well, programme, thanks for the opportunity to just broadcast the existence of this CR. And again, you know, if people do have questions, do send them in.
Thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, just a reminder, the Q&A is open for the rest of the day, so feel free to pop any questions in until the end of the day. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.